in my mind because it was a self-help business. Courses and things were sold for fixed prices. That's a business. A few years later, I'm working with L. Ron Hubbard. I was his assistant for the expansion of Scientology in the world. Now, in some countries, you cannot be a religion. For example, Mexico, Israel, Japan, and there are other countries in which Scientology has centers. They are not religions.
I think that's a very important point, Nancy, about whether they are religion or not, and if they can get away with in the name of religion.
Exactly. But the thing is, what they deliver in Mexico is exactly the same as what they deliver. They just changed the name. That's it. They have so many corporate shells. Some are quote-unquote religious for the IRS and they're like salesmen that will, whatever you want, we have. You don't want a church? Okay, we won't call it a church. And a few years later, when after the FBI raids and Hubbard was really being investigated for all of his espionage, he himself personally sent me a communication in which he said, I wished we'd never gone the religion route.
Oh.
I wished I had never listened to those advisors back then. We would have been so much better off.
Interesting.
This is him to me. It was also reported by other people that he was personally talking to about this at the same time. And that's been out in the press. So I'm not just making it up. This was his point of view.
Interesting.
And now you have this oxymoron of fixed donations. They didn't change the business at all. They changed the name. Instead of the price of the course is, they said the fixed donation of the course is. That's what Janet Reitman found after her entire investigative reporting. It is a business masquerading as a religion. There's no God in there. The religious roots it does have by the sociologist Keith Urban, who did a whole book on it, The Occult Roots of Scientology, what religious roots it does have are satanic.
Well, that's one of the questions that always interests me about this because, as this show is called God Discussion. Right. And I'm just curious if there is a God in Scientology.
No.
Deborah, this is Claire. One thing that I always find extremely revelatory, there's a video, now I can't remember when, it's from a few years ago, where I think this John Sweeney was interviewing several celebrities, or somebody was, and they interviewed several members and celebrities and asked, does Scientology believe in God? And every single person gave a different answer.
Excellent. Now, John Sweeney, didn't he just come out with this thing about the alien temple or some kind of thing in New Mexico, some underground bunker, but you can see it from outer space and it's got the interlocking circles with diamonds in them?
Yes, he and Mark drove down there a few weeks ago.
So were you guys, when you were members, were you aware of this underground bunker thing and what its purpose might be?
I personally was not. I did know about CSC, and they have a similar underground bunker in Running Springs. It's up near Big Bear in California. And I knew that they had they made titanium plates of Hubbard's materials that they put down there.
Yeah,
among
that's
other
what
things.
I saw too.
Yes. I never went there, but I knew of it. I learned of the New Mexico location after I left.
That's I just wonder how much that thing cost. They were saying it can withstand a nuclear blast. So
yeah, a few weeks ago we actually talked to somebody who was intimately involved in building it, and he definitely made it very clear. In New Mexico, it's way out in the middle of nowhere, and they, on anything like that, they spent millions of dollars in the blink of an eye.
Unbelievable. Well, we've got some more callers. This next one is on Skype, named Sue. Sue, thank you for calling the God Discussion Show and visiting with our ex-women here.
Oh, hi. I'm calling from Australia, actually.
Oh, thank you for calling. What time is it over there?
3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Oh, okay. So it's not like 3 in the morning in Europe.
No.
It is 3 o'clock in the afternoon tomorrow.
Right.
Well, thanks for calling. Did you have a question or comment?
A comment, really. I was a second-generation Scientologist of 4 generations. I have children and family who are disconnected from me, and I would really, really like to thank both Laurie and Claire particularly, and Nancy, for speaking out, because it is so difficult. It is so difficult. I've done as much as I can to this point, but what is sort of not understood is that it can affect your family who are still in. There will be consequences for them if you speak out. And that's difficult.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Ladies, do you want to address that?
I just want to say that is so true. That is so true. And that's why some people don't speak out.
Yes.
Because they fear those consequences. I don't know for you, Claire, what you think your family is going through because of the actions you and Mark are taking.
Well, yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I know my stepfather was staff for probably 30 years, and after Mark and I filed our lawsuits, he was booted off staff. Probably that may, I can look at that and go, okay, well, I hope in the long run he'll see that was a blessing. But, I have no doubt he has extreme resentment towards me for that, and that was certainly a consequence that impacted my family directly. I tried to talk to my sister one time when we were living in California, and she saw it was Mark and I said, "Hi, Kirsten, did you want to meet your nephews?" And she burst into tears and ran back to her house. She was 24. She was an adult. So yeah, the impacts on the family is huge. I mean, I actually saw my mother last year at my grandmother's funeral, and I'll keep it short because it's a whole other story. But when she and my stepfather got up to leave, I went over and gave her a hug, and in her ear I said, "Mom, I love you." And she whispered back and she said, "I love you too, and I hope to see you again real soon." Then I went to hug my stepfather, and he refused. So I said, well, I'm going to hug you anyway because I don't agree with this. And that just, rapidly degenerated into, I said to him, well, no, he said to me, "Oh, well, you're attacking my religion, and I don't agree with that." And I said, quite simply, I'm not attacking anyone's religion. I have friends who call themselves Scientologists. I have no disagreement with anyone's beliefs, but I'm not going to sit by and watch people's human rights get violated, abuses, and everything else. It's just not right. And I told him, I said, "Don't you believe communication is a universal solvent?" I mean, ask any Scientologist. They'll tell you that Hubbard says, "Oh, communication is a universal solvent," but yet in the same breath, disconnection can exist. It just, it's one of thousands of contradictions. But, yeah, no, absolutely. The impact on families is huge.
Interesting. Now, Sue, in Australia, hasn't the media there been issuing some scathing reports about Scientology? I mean, can you kind of address some of the I mean, I've seen some of those where they're like, whoa. I mean, so what are the attitudes towards Scientology over there?
Well, actually, it was a couple of very brave journalists who decided that it was a good story and followed through. And despite any kind of things that happened to them, they were photographed all over the place and so on. One of them was Today Tonight with Brian Seymour. He was just brilliant.
Yeah.
And also the ABC here. Also, a lot of it came from Senator Xenophon, who stood up in Parliament and talked about it and referred to Scientology as a criminal organisation, which sort of allowed other people to come, speak up as well. Brilliant.
It seems that Well, maybe not so much. Well, it's coming out in the media in the United States as well, but it seems like governments in other countries are more willing to stand up and say this is a criminal organization. At least,
yes,
a handful of people. Okay. Well, any other comments here before?
I just wanted to add
a comment. Oh, go ahead.
Okay.
Oh, yes. Sorry, go ahead.
Everyone wants to talk. Who's talking?
Okay, whoever you are. Who's this?
This is still in
Claire
Australia.
started talking. This is Claire. I started talking, as did somebody else. And I was going to.
Well, Claire, you go first.
Okay,
go first.
just on the subject of government and what you just said, I know, Ursula Caberta in Germany has been working on exposing the abuses in Scientology for many, many years. And in, I believe, late 2008, and then again in, I believe, March or thereabouts of 2010, she put on 2 symposiums where many, many European government officials attended. I know Mark and Jason Begay went to the first one with a number of other people. Amy Scobie went to the second one. Bruce Hines, Jesse Prince, a number of other people. And I think that that's had extreme benefit in terms of really pulling down the curtain and showing what tactics Scientology uses to control its members and how they cover up their crimes and everything else. But I think that has played a huge role in, as you were saying, governments being more willing to really confront the true facts behind the glossy facade.
Excellent. Now, who was the other person who wanted to say something?
It's me, Lori, and I talk to a lot of people, that have left, and my best advice, sometimes they're being harassed, and I've been harassed a lot, and my best advice to them is to go to the authorities. I mean, I share everything with the authorities. I have files in San Jose, files in Lakeport with LA, and if we don't tell the authorities what they're doing, the harassment, they're never going to know.
Mm-hmm.
And they do listen. I mean, they're on my street a lot. They were here today, yesterday. They go by my house because I reported it, and they know I'm not just BSing it because I have a big file, and they can check it out, and I have all the officers' cards in my wallet. And I just think everyone, if they really just say, hey, someone's outside my house, call them up and have the officer interview them. But that's what we need to do is so we can get more protection, because it's not okay what they're doing. I do feel they are a criminal organization.
That's a great point. And Nancy was talking about, like with Child Protective Services, they have some ins, apparently. That do you think that is being diminished a little bit, Nancy, whereas if more people are calling in about abuses, that they cannot keep up with this?
To some degree, yes. But then you have the places where Scientology has been dug in for years, like the American Congress and the lobbyists that they have in there that have a lot of money and a lot of power. And their dig into there was going on back in 1972, was when I first became aware of it and who was doing it. In Los Angeles, you have the sheriff of Los Angeles, Sheriff Baca, who's like in their pocket. I mean, just in their